Whichever team collaborates best is also the team that dominates. Dominate being the second part of our subject. We collaborate to dominate. We each focus on our core competencies or our strengths, and we outsource everything else. People, are you ready? Let's start the show. Let's start the show.
And a big welcome back to Two Schools of Thought. Alongside Bo Parrish, I'm Dave Erickson, and our goal is to help you see things differently and put you on a path to a specific purpose, whatever that purpose may be. Hopefully our two schools of thought will help you in that direction. Bo, our topic today is collaborate to dominate. What a great turn of phrase. How'd you come up with that idea?
Well, so when I think about the word dominate, the first thing that comes to mind is competition, where I am exerting myself at a maximum capacity alongside someone else or multiple other persons in a group competition and a one-on-one competition, with the end goal being to dominate, to stand out, to perform at a level that is higher than anyone around you. Hence, you dominate the competition to finish first. So that is all well and good in individual sports, for sure. But we get into a different conversation when we talk about accomplishing an end result that is common to two or more people. So we introduce a concept that is opposite of competition, and we call it collaboration. Both beginning with C. So again, we're talking about two schools of thought here. We're trying to keep things memorable, things that will be easily recalled, things that you can conjure up very quickly. So when you think dominate, I want to challenge you not first to think of competition, but to think of collaboration. So let's dive deeper on the subject matter of collaboration. Whereas competition is one against one or two against two, keyword being against. Collaborate is the exact opposite. Whereas competition is against, collaborate is together. So in any competition, there can be a collaboration. And this is where we get into teamwork. Let's just take basketball, 5-on-5. Each position on the court serves a different purpose. We have guards that dribble and pass the ball. We have forwards that set picks and shoot. And then we have centers that are ultimately responsible for rebounding. Each player on the court has a specific role and responsibility. The five that are playing together is literally the picture of collaboration. And the collaboration plays out into ultimately a winner or a loser. Whichever team on the court collaborates best is going to be the winner. Whichever team collaborates best is also the team that dominates. Dominate being the second part of our subject. We collaborate to dominate. We each focus on our core competencies or our strengths, and we outsource everything else. I don't even want to necessarily say weaknesses. We outsource everything that is not a core competency. Hence the advantage of collaboration. You do what you do best. I do what I do best. We work together, and together we dominate.
I had no idea you knew that much about basketball, Bo. Knowing the positions and what they do. Because you're a swimmer, biker, runner, and then to know that you all know all this stuff about basketball, I'm very impressed.
Well, I let's just say I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
You know what? You said something really interesting, and I was thinking, oh, that's a great sports analogy. But when you threw in the idea of outsourcing or giving it off to somebody else, I thought, what a great thing in business to recognize that if I can't do this, who do I outsource my next move to. So the forward or the guard who is not big enough to handle the center or the paint, they're going to give it to somebody else. They're going to outsource it to the big man who is more capable, more skilled, more experienced, and has the size and strength to make the basket to score for the team. And there's that great collaboration analogy that you just did. And it hit me when you talked about outsourcing, because we think about that in the world of business. You know, I have a certain skill set. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm glad you brought this up. And let's just apply this concept to entrepreneurs, because the classic entrepreneurs is the mindset that I need to be all and do all, where most CEOs or owners of businesses try to do everything. They do not trust in order to let go and bring other people in, whereas the primary role of the entrepreneur, first and foremost, is to cast vision. But unfortunately, most entrepreneurs tend to work on their business rather than in their business. And so how do we create a culture that allows the CEO or the entrepreneur to consistently and continually cast vision? We bring in others to perform the day-to-day, the managers, the operators, the technicians, the engineers, the accounts people. Everyone has their purpose. The business owner himself of doing all things, just as every position on the basketball court is capable of doing the passing, the shooting, the guarding, the blocking. But when you take a guy who's 7 feet tall versus a guy who's 6 feet tall, there's no question on the one who needs to be standing under the basket, rebounding the ball, versus the one that's dribbling, bringing the ball up the court.
Well, let's do a little back and forth examples. How have you used a virtual assistant or an assistant to help you as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur? Because there's only one you, and I love this idea that only you can do what you can do. So outsource the rest. How have you done it in your personal life, in your career life?
Well, so everything that is not speaking in front of a crowd or physically writing a book, for me personally, is outsourced. I could probably take a class on how to build a website, on how to efficiently build an email list. But for me, number one, I'm not efficient at performing those tasks. And number two, there are other people out there who are 10 times better than I am, who are already at the level that I need in order to facilitate the growth of my platform. Dave, I'm absolutely passionate about sharing my message with the world. And the most effective way for me to do that is to speak to large groups, and then in following up with the writing of my books and then personal coaching. But there's a lot more that needs to be done in the background, including setting up a website, generating an email list, doing content that's fresh, relevant, and regular. And those are the cases where I do need a virtual assistant. And in my case, I actually have a physical live person who I've formed a great relationship with as a result of one of my other relationships. So all of my best relationships have come from previous relationships. Hence, the main advantage of networking is you ask those whom you trust for introductions.
So you launched a book recently. How have you used this? Maybe you're a social media manager or an advertising guru to work for you while you are doing what you can do.
It's the little things that count, like announcing the dates for my book tour, the physical locations where I will be. I take pictures on site, I send those to her. She helps me promote those on various social media outlets and my email newsletter list. It's trying to stay top of mind with my audience and for those whom I could be a good fit for, as far as the concept of change management, of mind modification, of anti-perfection not being such a bad thing.
How scary is it to let that go and trust that someone else has your best interest at heart when you are pursuing your passion?
Well, so for me, it's not at all scary because I know myself to be literally incompetent when it comes to technical skills with the internet. And so I know my need for help is astronomical. And I don't need a whole lot of convincing that I need that collaboration in the form of a partner who just so happens to be fantastic in those specific areas that I'm not. So this is a classic case of me continuing to focus on my strengths and outsourcing my weaknesses. And it's working very well in my particular case.
One of the areas that I've found to be challenging is letting go and having someone else do, let's say, for example, this is a perfect example, the artwork for Two Schools of Thought for our podcast. I've had some experience with Fiverr. It's a site you can go and you can submit a work order, and they have different categories and they can create things for you. And I create my own art all the time, artwork for my videos on YouTube. You know, they call them thumbnails. So I'll create those in my own little programs, and because I know the message I want to put out there, because it's very personal to me. At least I know the intent and how I want to communicate. But to give someone else the creative rights to do so is a little bit scary. I know it's only $5. It's the whole concept behind Fiverr.com. But when I gave them the idea, I said, here's what I want. I want a microphone. I want pictures of myself and Bo Parrish. I want our names on there. And here's the title, Two Schools of Thought, Go. And for just $5.50, there's a 50-cent processing fee. They came up with our artwork, and I couldn't have been more excited and happy with the end product. And to me, it's like, that was so much better because the time I could have spent thinking about producing, editing, the color coordination, the whole framing of the artwork was done. And for $5.50, I could have accomplished something that would have earned me, in other respects, $100. So it was well worth the trade-off. And I know you and I have talked about that in the past with other talks that we've done, is if you have a landscaper that is offering lawn mowing services, you can clearly mow a lawn. You clearly have a high-quality commercial lawnmower in your backyard, but your hourly rate, for example, would be $200. Well, you charge that guy $50 to mow your lawn, you're still up $150, whereas you would have lost that money if you would have mowed your own lawn. That's the concept.
It all comes down to having a clear understanding of the time value of your money. So, or I'm sorry, the value of your time. So how do you value 1 hour of your time? That's essentially what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. Is that you need to really spend time working through that, because then it becomes a matter of comparison. And to use your example of cutting your lawn, if it takes you an hour to cut your lawn, what could you have produced from your competency in an hour? And what value would you place on that? And how much could you hire someone to come cut your grass for an hour? And if it's more, well, then you focus on what it is you do best. Let's say it's $75, and then you pay the lawn guy $50, and your difference is $25, so it's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. But you and only you can determine what that value of your time is.
I guess it's the same concept behind any business that runs in America or around the world, small business. You hire so many employees because you know they're going to make you more than what you invest in those employees on an hourly rate or a salary rate.
That's right. Yeah. This whole concept of scale.
Yeah.
Is there, we have our limitations as individuals. And once we bring other people into the mix, which is another advantage of collaboration, we are able to increase our utility by ramping up our production. It's the whole concept of scale.
Tips that we can pass along in terms of social media, we're an online world now, obviously, is the idea of collaborating with people in your field, or someone who's not necessarily in your field, but someone who has an audience you want to reach. And I'll give you my example first, and that is with a guy who has a very popular YouTube channel that is focused on Honda vehicles. Well, we met at the Detroit Auto Show. Actually, we met through Twitter, and then we met in person at the auto show last year, and we started talking like we should do something together. And so he was based out of Chicago at the time. So what happened was I said, I'm going to do a Honda, I forget what it was, a Honda CR-V review. How about you, his name is Jason, how about you do a segment about the engine and performance? Make a 1 minute or 90-second clip, send it to me. I will insert it into my final produced video on Everyman Driver, and I'll lead up to it by say, okay, now let's take a look at the engine and performance. Here is Jason. And I inserted the clip. Now Jason just got exposed to my audience on YouTube. That's and I have 100,000 subscribers. Jason's audience will now know that he was on my platform. And that would be the perfect example and my first foray into collaborating on YouTube. It's a little scary because you want to have your own identity and maybe not share the spotlight because there's a lot of eyes out there. You and I both know that, the noisy social media world we live in. And once we did that collaboration, it was like, this is a win-win. So what would be your example of a collaborative effort that you've embarked on?
Working with you, no question. I can answer that very quickly because everything that I'm not, you are tenfold. And that is your amazing video production. And a huge part of what I'm trying to do goes into the effective use of video, of which on my own, I would be lost. But with you, just in our daily talks, our weekly interactions, I mean, it's added a different component to my platform building that I never would have been able to bring to the table on my own. So you are my example of collaboration.
Well, expand on this, not for my own benefit, but talk about the Ask Me series that we created together not too long ago, and how that has helped you and how you've utilized that to share your message, because maybe other people could use something like that for themselves.
Sure. So you come from a background of media and news broadcasting, from being a traditional news anchor, being in the normal habit of delivering news in front of a camera, of which you're a natural. And very recently, you have created your own multimedia empire, Dave Erickson Media. You carry with you that natural ability, specifically in the area of interviewing, of asking questions, of setting people up to talk about their core competencies. So what you did for me in the Ask Me series allowed me to deliver the content of which I write about in my book in a non-traditional fashion, in short 5 to 10 minute segments that we then recorded and made available through various social media contexts where people could come in and listen and actually view our conversation. So for anyone that is interested in hearing directly from the author of The Problem with Perfect, you made that possible on a weekly basis. Whereas I know me as a personal fan of books, if I had the opportunity to listen to Andy Andrews or to Malcolm Gladwell on a regular basis, kind of in a off the radar, non-traditional format, I mean, I would jump at that opportunity.
Yeah, I've seen that before where it's basically a third-party endorsement, or someone who is validating the other person, is that they'll have a guest of one podcast or a certain platform on the show of another person's platform. And in a way, that's where I kind of got the idea for you, is like, how can we share your message at the same time maybe showcasing my skills? And I've seen that with some of the biggest names in marketing, entrepreneurship, is they'll go on other people's shows, and that other person is giving them a platform, and then vice versa. And it really is a great way to, not only for you, even though I know you're at a very high level of delivering your message, but let's say you're a new person who is, let's say you're a chiropractor, for example, and you want to talk about the services that you have in your clinic. Well, this is a good way to know what you know, is to teach somebody else in the form of video, because we know this breaks that barrier of print and photos. If you can see a person talk, you can almost get a feel for who they are. And I can speak from the television news broadcast world that our viewers feel like they have a relationship with us because they see us every single night on the newscast, and they see our body language, they see how we look, how we dress, how we interact with other people. The same characteristics can be showcased in interviews or podcasts with other influential people. Not just us, not just Bo Parrish and Dave Erickson on the Two Schools of Thought, but you can go on a different podcast or reach out. So I guess I'm getting to the point of the collaborate to dominate, not just with us, but with somebody else in your field or someone else who can showcase what you know.
And so the lead on the collaboration is education over endorsement. The way that I connect with anyone that I do not have a previous relationship with is to first educate rather than try to sell them on something that I am promoting. So the credibility is established through education. And from there, we build. We establish rapport. And based on that rapport, we start to figure out ways to do business together.
What other ways have you been thinking about of collaborating besides with me? Are you reaching out to other people? Have you been interviewed for blogs or other speakers?
Well, that's very appropriate. You should ask, because in less than an hour, I'm being interviewed by a leading psychologist in the field of personal development, a lady by the name of Cara Maxwell, who's doing a virtual summit throughout the month of December, where she has 30 thought leaders from around the world that she is interviewing, and she will release one video per day in December based on the message of the content of my book. So, that's another way of sharing platforms, collaboration in order to grow and to reach, ultimately to impact and service a larger audience.
Can you reveal how that relationship got developed?
It was actually through a local entrepreneur in Nashville who had a relationship with her. She actually lives in Costa Rica. He connected the two of us. We had a telephone conversation. Then we had a Skype phone call, and one thing led to another, and now she's interviewing me for this event.
This is huge, Bo. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. We'll see how it goes.
And I think you've got enough Skype experience. I think you'll do pretty well.
All thanks to you.
No, it's both of us since, I think, was it February of this year, we've been working on, our mind modification manual, that 26-week series. We got both of us worked on that quite a bit, and I think by the end of it, versus from A, it was an A to Z course, on from day one with A to Z, you and I both have grown quite a bit, whether it's our chemistry together, not that we lack chemistry, but I guess Skype chemistry and comfort by doing those videos.
For sure. I mean, it's just with all things in life, there is an element of practice that is required. No one likes to practice, but everyone loves to play.
How many times have you practiced your story that I first saw at a Timex multi-sport team camp of your brush with death? How many times have you practiced that?
Well, so, I deliver that message on a weekly basis.
Okay.
That's the substance that I deliver on the talk. That is the foundation of the content of my book. Mm-hmm. And so, at least once a week, since that time. So, you think back to, when was that? March of 2014? Uh-huh. So almost 2 years. So, I don't know. I'm not great with math, but that's more than one or two.
Well, we can save that for a different talk about how to orchestrate or how to map out maybe a personal story, or at least a person's path. That would be a great one for a future episode.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Because I think I can learn some tips from you. I don't know what my message is or my story is, but if someone can help me understand who I am, at least organize it, it's someone like you.
It would be an honor and a pleasure.
Well, Bo, want to wrap this up? This is episode officially number 1 of Two Schools of Thought.
One school to another. Class is dismissed.
I think you just got the tag word. That was great. All right, Bo Parrish, thanks very much. I called you by your full name. Bo, buddy, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
All right, Dave. See ya.
Don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere. Angel, look at that sky, life's begun. Nights are warm and the days are young.